All right, old school NBA fans, self-researched NBA facts. Got another video here for you. As always, thanks to anybody who watches my videos, subscribes to my channel. Much appreciated. You guys are the ones that keeps this channel going, keeps it alive. I like doing the research very much. I find out so much stuff. If it helps anybody out in some sort of a debate just for their own knowledge about stuff, I'm very happy to do it. There's just so much information out there, and it's amazing that no matter what different angle I look at, or it always tends to favor the same handful of players, especially the guy behind me here. It's pretty crazy, it really is. What I was looking at in this video, I was going for one thing, like it happens all the time, and I ended up going with something else. And in this particular video, what I'm looking at is how many times did a player score 40 points in a playoff game? How many times did a teammate score 40 times in a playoff game? How many times did an opponent score 40 times in a playoff game? So I'm just going to run down my top 25. That's the same set of players I've been doing. Let's start with Nikola Jokic. Now, Nikola Jokic has played 80 playoff games. Of those 80, he scored 40 or more points in a playoff game 5 times. An opponent has scored 40 or more 13 times. And a teammate has scored 40 or more 4 times. So Jokic and his teammate combined was 9. So the opponent scored more than him and or his teammates combined. So that was pretty telling. 5 out of 80. I mean, that's probably okay. That's what, 1 every 16 games. It's probably going to end up being around average. Number 24, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Same thing. 5 times out of 79 games, he scored 40 points in a playoff game. An opponent scored 40 or more 6 times, and a teammate only once. And I believe that was Chris Middleton, but I'm not 100% on that. Again, about average. Number 23, Elgin Baylor. Now you figure he's played more games, that he would have more. And also the teammate thing, he's going to have a bunch because of Jerry West. Elgin Baylor scored 40 or more out of 134 playoff games 14 times, which that's a good number, 14. An opponent 5 times and a teammate 20 times. So that's a lot of teammate help. That's probably going to be West, maybe Wilt a couple times. Pretty good. Number 22, David Robinson. He played 123 playoff games. 1 time he scored 40 or more in a playoff game. Only 3 times an opponent, though. And only twice did a teammate do it. And I'm pretty sure it was Duncan in both games. In fact, I know it was. So pretty low there across the board. So, that's good. Only an opponent only scored 3 times on you. But, of course, Robinson only got 1. Bob Pettit in 88 career playoff games, 4 times he scored 40 or more in a playoff game. 7 times an opponent scored 40 or more, and once did a teammate do it. I think that was Cliff Hagan. Number 20, Kevin Durant. He played 170 playoff games, and I thought this number would be higher, to be honest with you. He had 13 40-point games in his career, which is under 10%. Kind of low, but only because it's Durant. Everybody talks about his scoring. He's only got 13 40-plus point games in his career. That's it. His opponents, 15. So they've scored more than he did. And his teammates, 9. I'm sure Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry probably have all of those. But to me, I was surprised that the opponents outscored Kevin Durant on 40-point games. Very surprised on that. Number 19, Kevin Garnett. He never scored 40 or more in a playoff game out of 143 playoff games. 4 times an opponent did, and 3 times a teammate did. I think that might have been like Paul Pierce, I think Sam Cassell, believe it or not, had a couple of those. Which Garnett never scored 40 points. That's crazy. Never did. Number 18, Karl Malone. 193 playoff games. 4 times he scored 40 points or more. 8 times an opponent did. And 0 teammates scored 40 or more. So, that's probably about in line what I would have guessed on Malone. He was usually lived in that high 20, low 30 range. But he did have 4, but 8 opponents. I'm sure Jordan probably had some, Olajuwon, some guys like that, David Robinson. Number 17, George Mikan. 70 career playoff games. 4 times he scored 40 or more. Twice an opponent did, and 0 teammates. So that's a really good line. He scored double what the opponents did, and no teammate help on that. Number 16 is Oscar Robertson. Oscar Robertson played 86 playoff games. He scored 40 or more 3 times. Opponent 5 times, probably Wilt Chamberlain, and teammate twice. Guarantee you it was Kareem both times. So pretty low numbers, but again, he only played 86 playoff games, so kind of understandable there. Number 15, Steph Curry. He played 147 playoff games. 9 times he scored 40 or more, which is kind of low with all the threes he shot. I figured he would have had like 17, 19, only 9. His opponents 16 times. I'm sure LeBron James, Kevin Durant, players like that. And the teammate only 4 times, which I'm sure mostly would have been Durant, maybe Klay Thompson. But kind of low. He's only half of what his opponents did. Number 14, Moses Malone. He played 100 playoff games. 2 times he scored 40 or more, 2 times an opponent, and 2 times a teammate. So kept it pretty low. Didn't really have a ton of, huge breakout games like that, but neither did his opponents, and neither did his teammates. So 2, 2, and 2, pretty good in my mind. Because, when you're only scoring a bunch of 2-pointers, it's a lot harder to get to 40 than guys that, shoot threes and whatnot. But, he did shoot a lot of free throws. Number 13, Jerry West. One of the more impressive lines on here. 153 playoff games, 19 times he scored 40 or more. Only 4 times did an opponent score 40 or more, and 6 times a teammate. That would have been probably Elgin Baylor. And I know that Elgin Baylor scored 14 of them, but here's the thing. Baylor scored a lot of them in 59 and 60 before West got there. He scored a bunch of them before West was his teammate. So that explains that. But he's above 10%. That, to me, that's impressive. Anytime you're above 10%, that's impressive. That's the first, him and Elgin Baylor, because he was 14 out of 134. Those are the only 2 so far that I've seen that are above 10% of the time. Impressive. Number 12, Dr. J. 7 times he scored 40 or more. I included his ABA out of 189 playoff games. 8 times an opponent scored 40 or more. Never a teammate scored 40 or more. So that's pretty good there. Whenever you have 0 for the teammate, you're the guy when that happens. Number 11, LeBron James. In 287 playoff games, he scored 40 plus 25 times. Now, that's a lot number-wise, but it's under 10%. 8 times an opponent scored 40 or more, and 6 times a teammate did. I'm sure that was Dwayne Wade and Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. I guarantee you those 3 had a hand in that. So what's funny is I just realized LeBron James had 6 teammates get him 40 or more in a playoff game. Michael Jordan had 6 teammates get him 30 or more in a playoff game. There you go. Number 10, Shaquille O'Neal. Out of 216 playoff games, he had 13 40-plus games. 9 times an opponent did it. 8 times a teammate did it. I'm sure that was Kobe. Number 9, Tim Duncan. Out of 251 playoff games, he had 4 40-point-plus games. 8 times an opponent, and only twice a teammate did it. And I'm pretty sure that'd be Shaq and Kobe on the opponents. Number 8, Akeem Olajuwon. 145 games. he had 11 40 plus point games. Only 3 opponents ever scored 40 or more on Olajuwon, which that's a good number, and only 2 teammates, especially when Olajuwon didn't have the upper echelon help. To only allow 3 players ever to get 40 points is really good. He had 2 teammates do it. Number 7, Wilt Chamberlain. Very surprising on this one. Out of 160 playoff games, Wilt Chamberlain only scored 13 40-plus point playoff games. Under 10%. Very surprising. That's about in line with Olajuwon. 9 opponents did, and 9 teammates did. I'm sure that was Jerry West. Was it on that one, on the teammate. Number 6, Larry Bird. Out of 164 playoff games, 4 times he scored 40 points or more. 8 times an opponent. Never had a teammate do it. So that's pretty good on the teammate, and the opponent's okay, but only 4. I would have thought it would have been higher than that for Bird. I was semi-disappointed with that one. Number 5, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 237 playoff games. 8 times he scored 40 or more, which is low, considering, this is was the greatest scorer of all time for years. 10 times an opponent got 40, and twice a teammate got 40. I know one of them right off the top of my head, Game 6, 1980 NBA Finals, Magic Johnson. So a little low on that, I thought. Number 4, Kobe Bryant, 220 career playoff games, 11 40-plus point games. That's 5% of the time, lower than I would have thought. Only 4 times an opponent and 11 times a teammate. Almost certainly going to be Shaq, probably in all of them. Number 3, Magic Johnson, in 190 playoff games, 4 times Magic scored 40 or more. That's the same as Tim Duncan, the same as Larry Bird, the same as Bob Pettit, George Mikan, Karl Malone. So that's impressive for a guy, who's absolutely a pass-first player. 8 opponents scored 40 or more, and 1 teammate. I think that was probably Kareem. Number 2, Bill Russell, 165 playoff games. He never scored 40 or more. 25 opponents did, however. I'm sure Wilt had a lot to do with that, and Jerry West, absolutely. And he had 6 teammates only. I figured it would have been higher, Sam Jones and Havlicek and all them, but nope, only 6. And we get to number 1, Michael Jordan. Obviously, as far as this criteria goes, the most impressive, bar none. Michael Jordan, in 179 playoff games, scored 40 or more points 37 times. That's over 20%. Other than Jerry West, nobody even hit 10, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, nobody even hit 10%. And he's over here doing 20%, over 20. The times an opponent scored 40 or more. One time, the 1993 finals, Charles Barkley, in a triple overtime game in Game 3, got 42 points. And I think Jordan actually matched that in that particular game. And then, of course, no teammates ever got him 40. But, again, very impressive. When it comes to having those monster games, Jordan had the most. He had the highest percentage. He allowed the fewest. There's nobody on here who had 0 allowed. But the only player who allowed 1, regardless of how many games were played, was Michael Jordan. Just the 1. It was a triple overtime game. And then when it came to teammates, there was about 4 or 5 other players, 0 on the teammates. So without a doubt, when it comes to the high-end 40-plus point playoff games, whether it is a teammate, an opponent, or doing it yourself, Michael Jordan has got the most impressive line, bar none. So anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and till next time.